So, hey, folks. First of all, thanks for inviting me today. And to be honest, it's my first day at DevOps Day, so I'm really excited to be part of DevOps Days Amsterdam this year. My name is Henk van der Schuur, and my daily job is basically to walk this bridge, to walk the bridge from business to IT. So let's get started, guys, because recently I stumbled upon this picture and I really was struck by it because I think, if anything, our spacecrafts have become more technically complex over time, but somehow we managed to abstract away this complexity further away over the years. And at least the result is, at least it looks like everyone should be able to control this spaceship, right? Um, and of course, we all know this wouldn't be possible without all these amazing techniques you see on my slide and technologies. Well, gotcha, right? Because if Windows ME is in there, this cannot be true. And maybe you're thinking like, Hank, like, why do we need a bridge since this business IT gap has been there for ages, right? It has been there since the 80s. So what is new? Well, I think one of the things that has changed is that actually the demand for IT really has increased, right? So more and more technology and techniques are coming available, but also coming available to a broader public, uh, right? So I think it started with like the public cloud vendors like Azure and Google Cloud and AWS, and then of course there's also their respective low-code platforms like Power Apps or even Flow for Microsoft or Google AppSheet. And then maybe you know the local providers that are also there. And then there's also good old Excel, which is basically a programming tool in itself. And we all know IFTTT and things like shortcuts. So really, programming techniques are coming more and more available to not only the professional, but also to the citizen developer, as Microsoft calls it, and even consumers. And I think that is causing also that products and services of companies are impacted by this technology more and more. So in the beginning, maybe only internal products and services or secondary products and services were supported by these techniques, like managing HR or managing writing your hours or managing your leaves or having a CMDB registration tool. I think the trend is that more and more also the primary or external facing, customer facing products and services are impacted by these technologies, right? So we really see it impact production processes or transport processes. And regardless how this trend is precisely developing, I think it's real, right? And the citizen developer, to call it like that, or the business, as you might call it, will take over if we don't excel and up our game, I think. Because what we see happening is that the business expects us to do more actually than only doing our DevOps trick. And they expect us to understand that it's really about creating value, I think, as was also articulated in previous calls or keynotes. So new technologies allow companies to fundamentally change products and services. And I think we have already seen quite some examples of that, right? So we all know that Netflix, for example, doesn't sell or deliver any DVDs anymore and is all into streaming. And Philips, for example, famous for the Lightning, basically ditched that whole department and is now focusing on medical applications. And well, our own Dutch PostNL has now a solution to create digital post apps. And maybe that even went for Nintendo at the time, right? They started as a playing card company and now are, of course, only delivering gaming consoles. So I think businesses nowadays are asking the question, like, are we able to deliver a constant stream of constant evolving, innovative set of digital products and services? So when I saw this question after the DevOps days last year, it really caught my eye. And I think it's a super relevant question. And I'm really happy to see that today there is a dedicated business track even at the DevOps days. So this gap between business and IT is still there. And we need, I think, to get our act together. Because this is what we see happening a lot, right? And that is, again, the case, I think, for ages already. Business is totally separated from IT. By the way, bonus points for the one who recognizes this movie shot. And by the way, or let's do this first. My name is Henk van Schuur, as was mentioned, did a PhD at Utrecht University. And basically, I think throughout my career so far, I have always been in kind of this bridge position. So I did a PhD researching the software industry, and that was basically about bridging academic world with the industry. And then I became a product manager at AVAS Software in Leusden, overseeing their ERP product. And that is, of course, about bridging customers and developers, and also marketing and management. And now I'm a customer director at Schuur Phyllis, bridging our dedicated customer teams with the customer side. And again, really happy to be at DevOps Days today. I'm really looking forward to what is coming next. So if you look at this business and IT separation, you can think of it as, well, separate departments within a company, but you can also see it as, well, a business organization that has basically outsourced IT and is asking help from a supplier. Doesn't really matter. The thing is, neither understands the other, and both basically expect the other to do more to understand them. There's a lot of finger pointing there, right? And if you look at how those conversation often goes, it's like this, right? So IT says, like, hey, business, you should trust us. Like, we are smart people, and if you give us some space and freedom, that will result in value, right? That will go automatically. And then the business says, yeah, but it's kind of hard for us to trust you when features are late or when systems are down, right? So in the end, we are doing all this for our customer. And then IT says, for example, yeah, but those business interactions really feel like transactions, right? You say to us, just do it, and then we have to do it. But we really want to understand a bit more about the problem and what is the context. How do we fit in the bigger picture? And then if you have a kind of a vulnerable business, they say, like, yeah, sorry, IT, we are also only humans. And we also don't understand everything. So we need also some space to fill. But maybe needlessly to say, there are also much more intense, harsh conversations that take place too, right? So there are a lot of like questions like, why is this so freaking expensive? And why didn't we pay for security already? Then IT is like, yeah, why do we have to negotiate about security? That's the most important thing nowadays, right? And well, on it goes. So if you zoom out a little bit, in many organizations, we see this kind of fortresses or a corporate immune system, if you will, where IT is like, hey, it's about software and services, and we have our own language, please respect us. And the business says, guys, please come out of the weeds. Our goal is not to run a server or software for that matter. It's all about the customer. And I think the thing is, DevOps lives here, right? So the question is, how do we bridge the gap between those who write code and those who write emails, like myself? And another thing that doesn't help is that there is a lot of hierarchy that is still present at many organizations, and that doesn't really help. So there's then what happens, there's a lot of external consultants or project managers are hired to basically fix it. And they are hired to act like translators and talk to both sides, right? And actually, this results more into more overhead because it doesn't address the cause of the problem. So maybe you're like, Henk, well, please share that one brilliant unicorn utopian solution you have found. Bring it on. Well, don't know if it's a solution, but what I can do is share a bit about like how we work and what I've learned during that journey. So imagine this is a team. And if we then are about to embark on a journey with a customer, one of the first things we do is think about the roles we need from the customer side, right? And we try to basically make space for those roles within the team. And we basically target and focus in the organogram of that organization, like where is that role and what do we need from this role, regardless of the label, of course. And then we go to sit together into one room. We call it whole system in a room. And then, of course, we close the door and talk to each other. Of course, nowadays, respecting like all the corona measures that are needed. Um, and but you can call it like cross-functional teams or self-steering teams or co-creation or X teams. I think that doesn't really matter. It is about putting the people with the right knowledge and experience and vision together, whole system in the room. And maybe you can see it in the picture already a bit. Like there is little hierarchy involved here, right? It's really meeting the right people at the same time. This is me, by the way, in my role as a delivery manager or customer director. So I think the idea is, and what we see happening in such a whole system in a room approach is that we have to cross over in each other's space, right? And both sides basically have to commit to mutual bridge building, share responsibility for building a bridge to the other side, right? And so IT needs someone from business that says, hey, I do understand your language a bit and I appreciate you and I can be an advocate for you. And then business needs to take more ownership, I think, and involvement about like the tech decisions that are to be made, and really try to understand what they mean and what it's also what are cost implications, for example. And so since both sides are involved in one team, I think it prevents the finger pointing a bit. And what we then hear from customers, for example, that they say, hey, we really experience this different approach where we are not only a customer and you are just a supplier, but really feel this partnership together. So, and I think the challenge is here to find people that fit in the purple area, right? So don't have any resistance to the business or IT side. And it's difficult, I think, for us also to find people that fit that space. And we also see that people find it difficult, or our engineers, for example, find it difficult to really respect the business. Both sides have their own language. And it doesn't help if the business says like, hey, just do it and just build this for us because we asked. And at the same time, it also doesn't help, I think, if IT engineers or developers are like, yeah, we are #no estimates. We don't promise anything. Like, yeah, at the same time, and at the end of the day, business has to deal with deadlines and releases and customers. So I think it's not realistic to have that approach. And this is great, I think, for kickstarting projects or doing a proof of concept or proof of value or sharing a project updates. By the way, I think many of us already know kind of this approach from Scrum demos. So if you have a demo after a sprint, it is already kind of standard to involve all the relevant stakeholders in the room and invite them to see what has been built. So this is a way basically to operate with great transparency and build trust and realize a short time to value. But having that said, it can also be quite a pressure cooker. So maybe you think like, yeah, Henk, it's all well and good, but it's also a bit vague and abstract maybe. So maybe I can illustrate it a bit more with one of the more recent pressure cooker sessions we organized. And such a session really starts with this, like a fundamental, essential core question, what is basically illustrating the scope of that pressure cooker. So what is the answer that the question that we want to be answering at the end of the pressure cooker? And then the next step is basically really diving into that domain for us. So often we have a new customer and then we don't know anything about the domain. So we really want to understand like what is this process about, if it's about inventory management in this case. And then the approach we take is that we start with the end in mind. So at the bottom left, you see like a consumer. It's not really readable, but you can see a consumer ordering something. Okay, so if that's what we need to that needs to be happening, what is needed before that so that can happen? So we really dive into this domain, and we have the business actually represented in such a session. And the first days of such a pressure cooker, they are really basically all day explaining us like what is happening, what does the process look like. So here's a product business owner and a product owner together in the same room with us to elaborate on it. And then after some days, we start drafting and sketching, and you see an example of this here, where this is really about like, is this what you mean? And then we try to create a draft basically already, and then next step is start coding and build the actual prototype. And then at the end of such pressure cooker, we really want to demonstrate a bit of the value that we were able to create. So at the left, you see a prototype of the inventory system that was built here for a large beer brewer. And this all happened in 1 week. And by the way, at the right, we also prepared a little presentation for the customer to elaborate a bit on like what happens all down there in the cloud, so to say, and all things operations were elaborated on also. So in summary, I think this pressure cooker consists of the following steps, having the whole system in the room. So you start with preparation. It's essential. So what is this really about? Do we have the right question that we try to answer? And are we then doing this? Can we be successful here? Why are we actually doing this? And you can ask the why question a bazillion times, of course. And it's good to do that sometimes. And then the next step is like, do we really understand it? So are we maybe missing things? And if we start, when can we start with this, right? Do we have enough information? And then, like I said, we start sketching, right? So it's a way to basically get back to the customer and check, like, is this what you mean, right? Did we hear that correctly? Should anything be changed? And hey, maybe it's just us, but how is this going to bring you value, right? Could you elaborate on that? Next step is prototyping, and it's a way also to double check the requirements that maybe the customer stated at the beginning of the pressure cooker, right? Is this really what you want? Actually, who is going to look at this? And are we going to deliver this, or maybe are there elements in there that you want to have removed already? And then maybe the most essential step here is like decide like what's next. So was value actually delivered? And if it was, and if we want to go live with this, what does that mean, right? So what we see a lot is that customers have the expectation like, oh wow, we have this prototype, we can be live next week. Well, guess what? That's not the case. But when can we then go? Can we then go live with this? So what's next? So I think the thing is, if you start this way, you get an early notion of what you can expect as a team during execution of the project. And of course, there are a lot of methods for design thinking and double diamonds, etc., etc. I think one of the core messages here is, if it hurts, do it more early, so you know what you can expect later on in the project. So coming out of the pressure cooker or comparable method, either you know like the whole thing is not going to work like this, right? So maybe the problem was not clearly defined, or the business was not present, or the business was not involved enough, or maybe there was already a feature creep coming up, so we have to descope already. Or you have a quick transparent way to actual value, and that could then serve as a kickstart basically for the remainder of the project. So introducing BizDevOps. There's business involved, development involved, also operations involved, of course. And then I think it all starts with the business. So they are involved with having their desire and then defining it in a good enough, precise enough, refined enough way, so that the team has good input to basically realize value. So then the coding, building, testing, and releasing happens. And then I think what is really powerful is that like the operation and the monitoring, functional but also, or technical but also functional monitoring, is then input for the business to double check their desire, but also maybe create and define new desires, of course. And then there is this product owner, right? And you can also call him a component owner or a value stream owner, doesn't matter. I think the thing is, this is basically a mini CEO, right? And he or she should be fully mandated to make the decisions regarding this feature or project or product. And I think what is really powerful is that it is also a way to get together during the run of a piece of software, for example, right? So go sit behind the desk as an engineer of that end user and really try to experience what this user is experiencing day to day. Maybe a 5-second lag in opening a screen or something can be really frustrating. And bringing those roles together, I think, really helps in realizing short value in a quick way. So, if you remember one slide, make it this one. First of all, I think DevOps needs a sequel, and not in the sense that we should rename DevOps per se, but let's repeat the trick we did. Right? Michael talked about empathy. Well, I think this is about empathy, and it's not about empathy between the development and operations, but let's do that empathy trick, if I may call it like that, again, but then towards the business. And I think this is next level because it is and can be really extremely demanding. Business people are a different animal. But then again, I think their struggle of budgets and deadlines and etc. is real. Hierarchy, I think, is a way of comfort. Hierarchy, organizations with a lot of hierarchy are basically one big comfort zone. So let's rethink our way of working, governance, and also a way of reporting, for example, to the business. So get into the same room with at least those 3 roles, like business, development, operations, or maybe a facilitation, delivery, project management role. And I think don't even start when those 3 or 4 roles are not established. And finally, I think going forward, this is the new standard. So doing our DevOps trick isn't going to cut it anymore because the business wants to be involved and they want us to understand, I think, that it's about like realizing actual value. And it actually, I think, diminishes the risk. So after all, technology is everyone's business, right? So thank you very much for listening. And I guess it's time for some questions now. I would love to hear your thoughts. Thank you.
Hi, Henk. Thank you so much for that amazing presentation.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's my dog.
We have a little bit of canine intervention in the background here.
Come here.
So thank you for that amazing talk. We have
Thank you.
Quite a lot of comments in the chat, but not too many questions. So I've come up with a couple for myself, which I want to ask you about. So, for example, what can people do tomorrow to start moving towards this new way of thinking as a kind of a sequel to DevOps?
Yeah, I think I'm almost ashamed to put it like that, but my experience is that it may be really simple, and it comes down to organizing a meeting with the right people in the same room, right? And getting together and like think about like, hey, what is your perspective? What is your priority? What is your requirement? And then having a healthy conversation about those things together. And then, well, you might think like, yeah, but it is difficult for us to get the right people that we actually need in the right room or get the people with the right skills. Okay, but then saying no or saying yes, but as a team, we do need people from the business or the right people from the business, or you need to hire someone. That is then the conversation that you want to have.
That's really great. Thank you very much.